point on, after the 1920s, heart disease became the #1 killer in the United States. And heart disease remained the #1 killer from 1920 all the way to 1960, based on the statistics. But even with the statistics, you have to read into them, and you can argue that the statistics aren't right, that the heart disease never went anywhere. But I'm talking about heart disease because the introduction of radio, these radio frequencies, and also in the 1930s, radar was put out on a mass scale for the military, radar systems. Radio frequencies and radio waves are known. They're known to affect the mitochondria by reducing their ability to utilize oxygen. Mitochondria eat oxygen. They combine oxygen and electrons in order to make energy for the body. And when you take away the oxygen capacity, you diminish the ability of the mitochondria in a big way to make energy. And the heart and the brain are the two organs that have a very highly concentrated amount of mitochondria. And it's very known that radio frequencies also interfere with the functioning of the heart. The heart is a highly electrical organ. And it's pretty well known that radio frequencies like make your heart skip beats, and it interferes with the functioning of the heart. So during this span from 1920 to 1940, they blamed this steep increase in heart disease on smoking and eating the wrong foods. And this didn't really make any sense because people's diet didn't change. People didn't just start smoking. They always smoked. They pretty much, the diet was, everything was the same, but that's what they pointed the finger at. So moving on from that, and like I'm kind of comparing heart disease and radio technology and radar, the creation of radar technology, and I'm just talking about these two things together, but there's no clear proof that this caused this, but these two things were happening during this time concurrently. That's why I'm talking about them like this during this time. Now, the next huge leap or advancement in technology was in 1958. If I'm wrong, I'll look at the date here. But during this time, the United States put up in the Arctic something called the DEW, DEW. DEW is it's early warning detection system. It's for the military, and 2,700 miles of satellites that could detect missiles, aircraft, any military threat. And this was extensively put out up in the Arctic near Canada and Alaska. And right at this time, another pandemic happened. I forget the name exactly. You can look on the screen and see the name. But this pandemic happened right when when these satellites or these radar detection satellites, towers, whatever they were put up in the Arctic. And this pandemic lasted, I think, for like a year. And then, oh yeah, the sunspot. What was the sun doing? The sunspot cycles they were at a peak during this time. They were at a peak, and what you're gonna see is that a lot of these pandemics happen at sunspot peaks, but they don't always happen at peaks. Sometimes they happen at minimums. It's usually the extremes is where they happen. And then 10 years later, 1968. Again, look at the screen to get the exact date. During this time, the United States put out like a whole constellation, or put out like 10 space satellites into the magnetosphere for communication, and also, you know, more military stuff, more defense stuff was put out. They put out 10, and this was nothing new. Different countries had been putting out satellites for the longest, but this for the first, usually one at a time. But this time, the United States put out 10 all at one time. And right at the same time when this happened, this was a sunspot maximum, another sunspot maximum. They happen every 10 or 11 years. It was a sunspot maximum at this time, and another pandemic happened during this time. This pandemic stayed around for about a little bit less than 2 years. You can look on the screen to see the name of the pandemic. So the next big advancement in technology was in 1979. Actually, 1979 was like the beginning of it, but it rolled out over those next few years into the early 80s. But this is when 1G technology got implemented on the wide scale. Japan was the first to put it all over their country. It was the first country to put it all over. So now, you know, Japan, not the U.S., it's Japan this time. And from there, it spread all over the world. And this started in 1979 in Japan, then 80, 81, 82, 83, all over the world. And I don't want to make any too big of a speculation, too big of a jump. But you know what illness happened during this time frame. You know what illness happened during this time frame. And during this time, it was 1979, it was a sunspot maximum. Sunspot maximum. Yeah, to see the number of sunspots, you know, look at the screen. I'll put it up on the screen. It's a sunspot maximum during this time. And really, this it's not close enough association, not enough evidence to say that one caused the other, but it's very interesting to take note of like the time frame of how these things overlapped, how they overlapped with one another. And really, from here on out, from here to the rest of the video, the pandemics and the solar cycles and the advents in technology, the relationships aren't going to be that tight, but I'm just going to run through them anyway and talk about them just for informational purposes. And we'll get to present day at the end of the video and talk about that, which is what I'm leading up to. But the next sunspot maximum was 1990-ish. Again, look at the screen. And I don't recall, I couldn't find any information about any like pandemic that that happened during this time. But during this time, 2G technology was implemented, and some things were happening during this time frame in regards to technology and it affecting people. But I'm just talking about the G technology, communication, the different generation technology, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5G. So in 2000, the year 2000, again, look at the screen to see exact date. Year 2000, 3G technology was put out extensively all over the world, and during this time there was no tight association of a pandemic, but there was SARS. There was the SARS pandemic during this time, but it happened like a year or two after. So it's kind of a bit of a stretch to say that there's a strong relationship between those things, and this was also a sunspot cycle maximum at this time as well. And then we go to 2009. 2009 was the H1N1, the bird flu. And during this time, it was a sunspot minimum this time. The majority of them happened during maximums, but this was a sunspot minimum. And if I'm not correct, you have to look at the screen. It's too much information to remember. But with this, if I remember correctly, the pandemic happened before the rollout of the 4G technology. But it wasn't that the gap was about, I think, like 6 months. It's like a 6-month gap. So you could associate those two together. Sometimes the data doesn't align perfectly, and sometimes things get, there's information that's hidden, like things they started at this point, but they really got pushed out like at this point. So we don't know exactly with that, but we just know that these things are close together and within close proximity of one another. And then now to the present day. In the present day, in 2019, early 2019, 5G technology started, but it was slow to roll out completely, on a mass scale. And I think the reason why it was so slow was because people opposed it. People were getting hip to it. A lot of people were scared, whether it was justified or not justified, but a lot of people were worried. I think it was justified. I think that's why it rolled out so slowly. But at the end of 2019, what happened? The C virus happened, and this was right at the time when this generation of technology had been put out. It started early in the year, but it really started getting put out during the end of the year, and it coincides pretty tightly with when this happened. And of course, the early next year, early 2020, it was announced all over the news, and everybody knew about it. And we're in this mess that we're in right now. Wearing masks and all this silliness and all the drama that comes with it. So that's it. That's it. That's my video, really. And like the beginning stuff that I talked about in the video, I think that they were the most relevant, and they were more difficult to dispute. And I think the reason for that is because it was the beginning. In the beginning, you can see when you do this happens. When you do this happens. So exactly what you're getting, because you know, technology was baby stepping during this time. But as technology speeds up, it becomes more difficult to see what's causing what. And whenever there's a big jump in technology, the illnesses happen. And when the illnesses happen, the treatment happened. The medical technology speeds up. And at this point, everything's becoming a blur because, it's hard to see, because the technology is moving so fast, and the medical technology is moving so fast right along with it. It's hard to see what's what. But I think it's clear that we have to stay on top of this technology and the effects of it, and really control and monitor what these governments and these big corporations put out, especially in our communities, that could be affecting our health. Like sometimes you can have like I read a book. It's called, I think, The Invisible Rainbow. I'll put it in the description below. It's a really good book that talks about a lot of this stuff, and it talks about a lot of the statistics of where you could have a cell phone tower 5 miles from your house, and like within that vicinity of the tower, a lot of kids get like cancers and leukemia and stuff like this. So it's really important to keep up with these new technologies, ask a lot of questions, and really get informed and really get the community involved about this stuff before you just let it happen. Especially at your home, where you can't just change your house and up and move. So it's really important to be proactive, especially because of how fast technology is evolving these days. And even with the 5G, what they were doing, because they were getting opposition from the public, was that they were putting up poles that were disguised as trees, because either they didn't want to scare the people, or they knew that they were doing something wrong and they were trying to hide it, or maybe a combination of the two. But it really doesn't matter if the people don't want it. It shouldn't be. And we're having a big problem with governments these days, where it's the people's will. You work for the people. The people aren't your slaves, and the governments are getting this confused. And we really need to pay attention to all of this. Okay, so that's my video. Hope you learned something from it. A lot of it didn't really go anywhere, but I think the beginning and the point that I'm trying to make about staying up to date on the technology and monitoring it and keeping yourself safe, especially in this new age, the age of Aquarius, technology and progressive thinking. We're in this age where, and everything's getting crazy. So stay alert, and much love to everyone out there. I love you all. You take care of yourself, and I'm gonna just enjoy the rest of this beautiful day, and just take my walk. So again, I love you all. Take care, and goodbye.